Welcome, Jet fans. This is the Jets Life podcast. Week 1 is in the books. The Jets open their season with a 24-9 loss to the Baltimore Ravens. We're going to talk about the Jets defense, which had an outstanding game comparatively to what they had last year. The Jets offense, which took a step back with Joe Flacco as quarterback, and some missed opportunities that resulted in this eventual loss to the Ravens, and what could have gone differently. Let's start with the Jets defense. Going into this game, we all knew that we had to limit Lamar Jackson in the run as much as possible, and make this offense as one-dimensional as possible. With that, you would expect that our secondary would be able to hold up against this Ravens offense. We did the first part of that task. We held the Ravens offense as a whole to 63 yards rushing, which, any team going into a game can limit the Ravens to under 100 yards is a major accomplishment, and we did exactly that. The secondary, for the most part, and for most of this game, did their job. There was very limited passing lanes for Lamar Jackson. Lamar would roll out of the pocket, get extended time in the pocket, and he still had nowhere to go. And that says a lot about the secondary. Sauce Gardner, Michael Carter, DJ Reed were locking these guys up all day long. And that would be expected. I mean, the Ravens, Rashad Bateman was a former first-round pick, but outside of him, there's a lot to be desired. And Devin Duvernay isn't a world beater like he was against us this first week either. But Sauce making plays all over the field, including covering the tight end Mark Andrews, which was a very interesting to see out of Saleh. He's going to put Sauce on the Ravens' top target, and that's exactly what he did there. In addition to that, DJ Reed making plays all over the field. He had the interception late in the game when the game was already decided, which came with some scrutiny because of his celebration at the end of it. Unfortunately, the scrutiny came before anybody understood the story behind that. With the passing of his dad right before the game, sad to see, a player have to go through all that and, be scrutinized without much of an understanding of what the player is actually going through. So sorry that DJ Reed had to go through that, but, probably shouldn't have been out there, probably should have been with his family, but he chose the team first, and, you got to tip your hat to him for being out there, and on top of being out there playing a fantastic game, with the forced fumble and the interception. But, the defensive line did its job for the most part. I heard some, banter about what Carl Lawson was able to accomplish against, third string tackles, but his responsibility for most of this game was containing that outside edge, and watching the game again, you can see that was exactly it. He was, off the line, quick. He would get to the outside, and Lamar didn't have that outside lane to go through. I think he had that one run I think it was a 3rd and 8 or 3rd and 9. Got around the corner, got a first down, but outside of that, Lamar Jackson held in check for what you would expect of this team. So defensively, really, just brilliant overall, until some missed opportunities affect us later in the game, which LaMarcus Joyner, I gotta take some flack here. I was actually a little bit excited about him going into the season. Thought he was a vet. We needed some veteran presence back there, with the young group of corners. But it's sad to say that he was, responsible for a lot of big plays in this game. He had the pass interference on the first touchdown drive by the Ravens. He was the closest guy in coverage, the deepest safety in coverage on the 50-yard touchdown to Bateman late in the game, which made it 24-3 at the time. Just can't have those kind of plays. Robert Saleh talks about it all the time. You can't have these explosive plays. And, I know pass interference isn't really a explosive play from a pass run standpoint, but, when you look at it flipped the field for sure, which eventually led to that first touchdown. So, outside of that, I really can't say much else about this defense. It was just outstanding from beginning to end. The intensity matched the intensity of that stadium. Everything we saw out of defense to start this game was just electric, and I can only hope it gets better from here on out. Let's move on to the offense, which, I mean, unfortunately, not much great to say here. Joe Flacco behind a really terrible offensive line, at least the left side of it. Fant, got beat a lot on that side. Tomlinson didn't have a great game in the middle for his first game as a Jet. Could have resulted that be Fant moving from left to right, right to left, and everywhere in between over the past month and a half. Possibly. I mean, Tomlinson hasn't really worked much with Fant for training camp. I think this week was the first week, really that, they came in with a game plan of working together on that side. So maybe just not enough continuity there. So you'd hope it gets better week 2, and it has to with Myles Garrett on the horizon. But, just anytime that this offense made a play, it was it really was one step forward, 2 steps back every single drive. And it started, very first possession. I mean, very first play of the game was a 19-yard run by Michael Carter. Going into this game, we said we had to run the ball. And as bad as the offensive line was in the past, I think it did its job a lot for the running game. I mean, there wasn't, chunk plays every play, but, they were getting some push. Breece Hall had a long run. I know you're not going to win in this league with 2 and 3 yard runs, but I mean not many negative rushes in this game. The issue in this game is that it got out of hand in the third quarter, and you had to abandon it. It had to turn into a passing game at that point. So to rush for 83 yards rushing when you abandon the run midway through the third quarter, I think it says a lot about what the running game accomplished. So just some positivity from what I saw at the offense. But, as bad as Flacco was, I mean, the play design was a lot to question as well. Towards the tail end of last year, Mike LaFleur, after the Zach Wilson injury, seemed to have settled into his play calling duties. Seemed to settle into his play calling duties, and you went into this game and you just thought that there would be a little bit more creativity in week 1, with all his time to prepare. I mean, it's not like it was sudden that Joe Flacco was named the starter. I mean, the Zach Wilson's injury happened in the first week of the preseason, so you had plenty of time to game plan for Joe Flacco's skill set. And in my eyes, I mean, last year you had a lot of design plays for Braxton Berrios. Elijah Moore was, elite as a receiver in that period of time where Zach Wilson was out. 100-yard games every week, touchdowns every week, and it was amazing what we saw of, Elijah Moore. But then you go into week 1, and Lawrence Cager's getting a lot of time on the field to start the game. Garrett Wilson is not. I mean, I know they play different positions, and they were going with a lot of 13 personnel as a result of issues on the offensive line. But I don't understand the thought behind putting Cager out there over Garrett Wilson to start the game. You would have expected to see some short passes, just quick passes, get the ball in the hands of Elijah Moore, get the ball in the hands of Garrett Wilson. And we saw what Garrett Wilson can do on that one play, his first reception of his career. Joe Flacco escapes a sack and throws a ball up to Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson comes back to the line of scrimmage to catch the ball, turns upfield, makes a couple of guys miss, and gets a yard short of the first down. I mean, that's the kind of player Garrett Wilson is. That's the kind of player he was in college. He's a great route runner. He makes guys miss. And you would expect some play design to get the ball in his hands, especially in your first 15 when you're trying to set a statement. It's such a different game if we're able to get a touchdown on that first 15. But just the play design wasn't there. It's kind of alarming. And then Flacco being back there for as long as he was. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what's gone on with, I understand you go into the season, you name your starter, and you move on with him, and so be it. But Flacco's not the future quarterback. But neither is Mike White. You know, but I think Mike White has a little bit more of like a more of a benefit on your future than Joe Flacco does. I mean, you know, Mike White had probably the best game of any Jets quarterback over the last, however many years. I mean, outside of the Favre game where Favre threw 6 touchdowns, I mean, can you really name many other great games from a Jets quarterback than what Mike White did against the Bengals last year, who eventually went to the Super Bowl? I know it's one game. It is what it is. But, I mean, I'll take that one game and what could be over what we had seen from Joe Flacco through, the first 2 quarters. I mean, I'm not saying you pull the plug to come out of the second half, but when they came out in the second half and, the adjustments weren't made, I don't know. You would just hope that, that you would just hope that there would be some sort of accountability, or just something. I mean, Flacco was getting pressured up the middle, and once the pressure got there, the play was over. I mean, yeah, outside of the Garrett Wilson play where he escaped and threw that, flutter ball to Garrett Wilson. I mean, outside of that, I mean, really, what other plays were really made at the quarterback position? Mike White at least gives you that escapability as an option a little bit. I mean, Mike White's great game was all checkdowns as well. I mean, he wasn't stretching the field either, so it's not like Flacco was giving him something outside of his veteran presence that Mike White couldn't. Obviously it didn't happen, but going into next week, if it's a lot of the same, Robert Sala's got to have some sort of pulse on the game and understand. Like, I mean, this defense played outstanding. You can't waste great defensive performances in this league. I mean, we all know it's a quarterback-driven league, which, a lot of that to be said about the skills at the quarterback position. I mean, when a defense is playing as great as it was against a former MVP, who still has enough in his tank to put together MVP seasons, I mean, when defense is playing that great against Lamar Jackson, they need some sort of additional juice. I mean, I talked about earlier that there weren't enough turnovers. Maybe the offense scores a couple touchdowns. Defense can play a little bit aggressive and try and force a turnover. I mean, I don't know what what you can really kind of say more about the defense on that. I mean, this offense has got to straighten up. That left side of the offensive line, like I said, maybe another week of practice. Fant, get refamiliarized with the left side after going all of training camp for the most part. On the right side, maybe that's what he needs. Tomlinson maybe just needs to get refamiliarized with Fant on the left side. Only hope it gets better, but I mean, it's just unfortunate, I feel for every Jet fan that was there, and that stadium was electric. It was loud. It was awesome. I mean, I had my TV blaring, listening to all you guys just screaming and roaring, and the defense felt it. I can tell you that. I mean, you could see the drive in the defense. I mean, the defense definitely felt that passion. They were making plays. It's just unfortunate that missed opportunity after missed opportunity in this game. LaMarcus Joyner with those bad plays. You got this offense. Every time that there was a good play, it went backwards. I mean, what can you really say about this game that is like going to make you feel any better? And the only thing I could say is, again, Mike White isn't a future at quarterback, but he provides additional future benefit. I mean, what's the worst that can happen? If Mike White has a couple of good games, I mean, Dallas just lost their quarterback for an extended period of time. I mean, could you potentially, when Zach Wilson comes back, maybe, send Mike White over there to kind of help Dallas for a little while? I mean, obviously, Dallas would want to make a move now. Probably Jimmy Garoppolo is more of an option there, but, anyway, I mean, just Mike White's a little bit, it just seemed too obvious in this game that the Jets needed to turn to Mike White and, kind of give this offense some sort of spark. It had nothing. I mean, like I said, a couple plays here and there, a couple of long runs, Garrett Wilson with a couple of nice catches. Corey Davis had that one drive with a couple of nice plays, and there were missed opportunities everywhere. I mean, to end the half, they were driving a little bit. Maybe, who knows what happens on that first drive, but on a third down, throws a pass to Conklin. Conklin catches it, fumbles. The ball goes behind the first down marker. Garrett Wilson recovers it, but now it's fourth down. You got to send a field goal unit out there for a field goal. I mean, who knows what happens there on that drive? I mean, going to the half down 10-7 is a lot different than going down 10-3, for sure. I mean, we all understand that. Just missed opportunity there. On that DJ Reed forced fumble, Michael Clemens was the first one there, got his hand on it, but wet ball, bouncing ball, Ravens player falls on it and recovers it. Unfortunately, the very next play was the 50-yard touchdown over LaMarcus Joyner to Rashad Bateman. So I mean, you're talking about that play right there. You're gonna get the ball at midfield or give up a touchdown, resulted in pretty significant swing. Who knows what we do with the ball when we get it? Maybe we turn into a one-possession game. Who knows? But missed opportunity there. The missed field goals. I mean, come on. When is this team going to get the field goal thing right? I mean, we had Pinheiro here last year. He was perfect while he was here. Goes into a kicking competition with Zerline. Zerline wins it. I mean, from everything you're hearing, he was nailing the long field goals. He was, more consistent. But, comes into week one, misses his first field goal, and then eventually misses a extra point on our only touchdown later in the game. Meanwhile, Pinheiro hits a field goal against, I think it was 4-4 against 4-4 in the Carolina game against the Browns, and hits the game, not really a game-winning field goal, but would have been a game-winning field goal if Cleveland's kicker didn't nail a 58-yard field goal. But he hit a field goal to take the lead, did his job, but we still can't get the kicking game right. Talking about kicking, can't even punt the ball right. I mean, Braden Mann, I mean, for everything that, that first draft class, I mean, you just look at it and it's like mistake after mistake after mistake. Yeah, Mekhi Becton, we still don't know what he is, whatever, and we know what he is. He's a great player when he's on the field, but his injury issues have become a little bit of a problem, as we haven't really been able to see him for a lot of time. But Denzel Mims, I mean, we don't know what he is because he's never suiting up. Sorry. Never suiting up. He's fallen out of favor with this coaching staff. Basically being held hostage, it seems like, at this point, because, I mean, he requested a trade. We said we don't want to trade him because we have a lot of faith in him, but yet he's not even suiting up in the opening game of the season. Ashton Davis is primarily a special teamer now as a third-round pick. Jabari Zuniga, not even on the team anymore. Bryce Hall, fifth-round pick. I'm not really going to get on him too much, whatever. He did get the touchdown this week, but, I mean, for the 2 years that he played, or a year and a half, because he was injured for most of the first half of the season, I mean, he was serviceable. I mean, he did what he could. I'm not going to really say anything there. It was one of those guys that, potentially had a lot of talent, draft him late. But that draft class is looking terrible. And then Braden Mann, you draft a punter at all in the draft, you would expect him to be a halfway decent player. And Braden Mann has just not been that. I mean, he's just messing up punts. I mean, there was a 20-yard punt, which is the one that's getting the most talk. But earlier in the game, there was a punt that was like very, very short. Devin Duvernay had to come up and get it. But I mean, it was one of those plays that just like, it flipped the field for sure. It messed the field position battle. Ravens had a rookie punter out there that, was doing his job of flipping the field. Yeah, I mean, it's just unfortunate that for being a young team, we really have to do everything right in order to win these games. I mean, it's just the way it is. When you have a young team, your mistakes are kind of accentuated because, with such a young team, it's not as easy to get yourself out of that. It's not like we have, veterans all over the place that can kind of, have seen this, done that, all, to where they can kind of make up for these mistakes. this offense, you know, you know, it's all youth there, and having a flip field means you have to go 80 yards, 70 yards every time. And we saw the average field position, like the Ravens were getting the ball on average at the 40-yard line. We were getting the ball on average at our 20. So I mean that's a 20-yard flip every single time. I mean that's not what we wanted. In this game, we would have wanted it to be the other way around because give Lamar a longer field. I mean, really a long field for any player is hard, but with a young team, it just accentuates it, especially when Joe Flacco's throwing an interception to Marcus Williams that gets returned back. Um, great, great drive by the defense to stop him, but just missed opportunities all over the field. Can't really just say enough, but you know, with some positivity, I mean, I'll end it with some positivity here. The Jets defense again looks vastly improved, and we don't have a world beater coming up this week. We have Cleveland coming up. Jacoby Brissett at quarterback. Again, it's going to be stop the run is going to be the main responsibility, and then contain the pass once you've done that. So looking forward to seeing what the Jets defense can do. Offensively, I mean, we still have talent everywhere. I mean, I'm not giving up on this team because of one bad offensive performance. Things need to get right. Michael Flores got to, look at this game and see what he did wrong. Maybe call just a more Joe Flacco-esque game plan. If you're, starting Joe Flacco again, and if you expect him to be your starter for the entirety of the game, have a game plan that kind of, fits his skill set. Get the ball out of his hands as fast as possible, especially if the offensive line continues to struggle. I mean, you're not developing plays down the field. It's just not going to happen unless, you just get a couple of formations where, they fall in your favor. But, I mean, offense has got to get better. Get the ball into the hands of your playmakers. We know what Elijah Moore is. I mean, we saw it. We know what he is. We know what Garrett Wilson has the ability to become, and he showed flashes of it in his opening game. Michael Carter, I mean, had an outstanding game. 100 yards of total, passing and rushing from scrimmage. And he's done that before. I mean, he was probably one of the best players outside of Mike White on the offensive side of the ball in that win against Cincinnati last year. And he did the same thing, just caught a bunch of passes, a lot of rushing yards, and, it all adds up. Breece Hall, didn't have the greatest performance in week one, but, he was a beneficiary of the checkdowns for sure. And get these tight ends involved. All off season we were talking about the tight end room's been upgraded. Which it has. C.J. Uzomah's way better than what we had last year. Tyler Conklin is way better than what we had last year. Jerry Maruckert, who didn't even suit up, I mean, we don't know what he is, but, I mean, it doesn't really get much worse than what we had last year at tight end. So, I mean, it's just get these tight ends involved and run the 12 personnel. If you're going to come out 13 personnel, fine. But don't let it take away from snaps of Garrett Wilson, Elijah Moore. Braxton Burris had a bunch of plays out there, but no play design. You just hope that LaFleur cleans it up, gets some plays designed, and gets the ball in these guys' hands, and they make plays with it. And that's all we really need to do. Just a few more games of just, get the ball in these guys' hands, see what happens, see how teams respond. And maybe that even opens up the running game a little bit. If these teams have to get out in the perimeter a lot quicker, they're going to play a little wider. I mean, it's just the way it works. It's going to open up those running lanes, and things can only get better when those running lanes open up and play action. And just going into offensive football 101 there, but and I don't know, from a defense standpoint, what you need to do about LaMarcus Joyner back there. I mean, I know we have Tony Adams there as well. We let Pinnock go. I think he's with the Giants now. Not saying Pinnock was going to be an all-elite safety or anything like that, but I'm just shocked that, he showed some promise playing safety at the tail end of the season. I'm surprised that they just let him walk out of here. But we have Tony Adams, who we kept as a player over Jason Pinnock. I mean, does he, get elevated playing time? I mean, again, not quitting on any players after week one, but a couple big plays by LaMarcus Joyner that he gave up and resulted in, eventually 14 points. Can't have that when the offense is struggling, unfortunately. As great as the defense played, can't give up huge plays via penalty or via just long passes. And that's what happened. But again, so just a few things to kind of lighten you up on this, horrible week one performance by the Jets offense. It can only get better. And that's all I can say. It can only get better going into week two, and hopefully it does. Well, that's going to wrap it up. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe to the channel. I'm growing, so trying to get as many subscribers as possible. And go Jets.